The morning air was thick with dust and the dry scent of the savannah. Clinging to every blade of grass and sun-baked stone, a small elephant no more than a year old. Huddled near the cracked edge of a dried-up waterhole, its body trembling with uncertainty. Each breath it drew was soft but uneven, rising in shallow clouds of dust as its tiny ears flicked nervously at every faint rustle in the sparse trees. Its trunk swept the ground, dragging lightly through dry soil, tasting nothing but the bitter earth, as though seeking reassurance in the familiar grit. The calf's legs wavered beneath it, unsure, yet a fragile determination glimmered in its dark round eyes. A low, almost imperceptible moan escaped the calf's lips. The sound was delicate, barely carried across the wide, empty plain, but it resonated with urgency. The mother, the center of its world, was nowhere in sight. The absence left a hollow stillness, punctuated only by the distant, intermittent trumpeting of other elephants far beyond the horizon. The small elephant paused, snuffling, pressing its trunk to the earth, and then lifting it, scanning the air for any trace of the familiar scent that might guide it home. Only the dry tang of dust and withered grass answered. Not far off, the ranger moved slowly, careful not to startle the young animal. His boots stirred the dry soil with each step, but he kept his distance, allowing the calf space to navigate its fear. "Hey, little one, where's your mama?" he murmured, barely louder than the whisper of wind through brittle leaves. The calf stiffened for a heartbeat, ears quivering, before raising its trunk to the air, sniffing desperately. It turned in circles, small, uncertain steps, scattering puffs of dust, as if searching the horizon for a shape, a sound, a scent that might reassure it. The landscape offered little comfort. Sparse trees reached upward with gnarled branches, leaves brittle and rustling faintly under a dry breeze. The riverbed, once a source of life, lay shallow and cracked, a silent reminder of the harshness of the season. Even the occasional distant trumpet of a passing herd seemed foreign, unconnected to the desperate call of the little calf. Its soft moans continued, rising and falling in an uneven rhythm. A fragile plea carried on the dry wind. Despite exhaustion and fear, instinct guided the young elephant forward. Each tentative step was an act of courage. Each careful shuffle across the cracked earth, a quiet declaration that it would not give in to despair. Its trunk brushed against scattered tufts of dry grass, stirring a small swirl of dust, while its little tail twitched nervously, betraying its tension. The calf paused often, ears angled, eyes scanning the horizon, then pressed on again. Driven by a memory more than reason, seeking the warmth, the safety, the quiet reassurance of its mother. Time passed in measured, uncertain steps, and the young elephant's movement became a rhythm of persistence. Even in its vulnerability, it embodied a quiet bravery, a determination not yet shaped by the world's harshness. The ranger watched, silent heart tightening with the weight of the calf's struggle. Recognizing the fragile thread between survival and despair, dust swirled in the wake of the tiny figure, catching the morning light, as if even the earth acknowledged the small yet unwavering hope it carried forward. Every cautious step pressed it closer toward the unknown, toward a possibility that seemed distant but necessary. The calf's soft moans continued, blending with the whispering wind through sparse grasses, a testament to instinct, endurance, and the invisible bond between a mother and her child. In that quiet, tense morning, the savannah held its breath, and the small elephant, trembling but determined, took another step, carrying hope across the dry, open earth. The sun rose higher, its warmth spreading across the dry savannah, turning the earth to muted gold and making the cracked soil glimmer faintly. The small elephant moved forward with quiet determination, each step measured and deliberate, feet pressing carefully against uneven stones and brittle grass. Its trunk lifted repeatedly, flaring nostrils inhaling the air, seeking the faintest trace of its mother's scent. The memory of her presence guided it, invisible but powerful, urging it onward through the vast, lonely plains. The journey stretched on for hours. 6 hours passed in a rhythm of slow trudging and careful pauses, the calf moving steadily, though fatigue pressed against its small frame. The savanna seemed endless, painted in shades of burnt ochre and scattered green, dotted with sparse trees and distant bushes. Birds lifted abruptly into the sky at its approach, their wings stirring soft gusts, while their calls wove a gentle accompaniment to the muted crunch of its feet against the earth. Even the soft whisper of wind through the dry grass seemed tuned to the movement of the determined young traveler. At one point, the calf stumbled over a gnarled root half buried in the earth, tripping clumsily and letting out a low, frustrated squeak that trembled in the heat. Its legs shook, wobbling under the effort, but it did not pause for long, regaining balance and pressing forward. Each step demanded courage, and the calf's persistence became a quiet testament to instinct, memory, and the fragile will to find its mother. In the distance, a ranger kept pace, careful to remain hidden behind sparse shrubs and low trees. There was no rush to intervene, only a respectful watchfulness, a heart quietly aching for the small creature's struggle. The heat radiated off the sun-baked ground, shimmering in waves as the calf navigated over uneven terrain. At a dry riverbed it stopped, lowering its trunk to taste the parched sand. Moisture was scarce, only traces clinging to the surface, yet it sipped anyway, seeking relief however fleeting. The tiny gesture of nourishment seemed to restore a bit of strength, allowing the calf to continue small, deliberate movements guiding it forward. Every step was a quiet act of trust in its own instincts, a belief in something it could not see but knew was ahead as the afternoon progressed. The terrain grew thorny, and long shadows stretched across the plains, following the calf like dark ribbons across the golden grass. Its pace slowed, legs trembling under the strain, yet its gaze remained steady, ears angled, nostrils flaring as the scent of its mother teased the edges of its awareness. Every cautious step carried it closer to the unknown, and yet, propelled by memory and instinct, it pressed on. A distant trumpet echoed faintly across the plains. The sound was soft but familiar, resonating through the calf's chest. Its ears perked instantly, eyes widening with a flicker of hope, a glimmer that something awaited further ahead. The ranger whispered from a respectful distance, voice soft enough to blend with the rustling grass. "Almost there." The words hung in the dry air, gentle and tentative, meant to calm rather than command. There was no response, but the calf shivered slightly, trunk twitching and legs flexing, as if the meaning had reached it. Though exhaustion weighed on every movement, the animal's resolve was unwavering, propelled by the memory of warmth, comfort, and protection that only its mother could provide. Time became a slow, continuous rhythm, the delicate cadence of soft steps over stones, the subtle shifts of balance, the steady, quiet inhalation of the dry savanna air. Dust rose in small clouds beneath each careful footfall, swirling faintly in the afternoon sunlight. The calf pressed forward, drawn toward the promise of reunion, a connection older than sight or sound. The journey was long, but each movement carried it closer. Every tremor of its legs and flick of its ears, a testament to persistence and hope. By mid-afternoon, the calf's silhouette merged with the undulating golden grass, small and determined, moving ever onward. The wind whispered through the sparse trees, and somewhere distant, the faint call of another elephant echoed again. With each careful, tentative step, the young traveler carried the weight of fear, the warmth of memory, and the quiet, unspoken determination to find home. The calf paused at the crest of a small rise, ears flicking nervously as it caught sight of a familiar, massive shape lying awkwardly near a sparse grove. The silhouette was unmistakable, large, heavy, and motionless, except for a faint, uneven rise and fall of its side. The young elephant froze, trunk trembling, muscles tight with instinctive worry, before a surge of urgency drove it forward, small feet pounding the dry earth with careful determination. Each step was tentative, yet relentless, guided by memory, scent, and an unspoken bond that pulled it toward the one being who had always been its world. As the calf approached, the mother lifted her head slowly, eyes wide and weary, reflecting the toll of recent hours. Dust clung to her rough, wrinkled skin, and a streak of dried blood marred her side, dark against the pale gray of her body. Every movement was laborious, muscles quivering under her weight. Yet when she saw her young, a flicker of recognition lit her exhausted gaze. She responded with a low, rumbling call, faint but filled with unmistakable relief. The calf's small trunk pressed against her forehead in a gentle, steady nudge, and it let out a soft, desperate call in reply, the sound quivering with both worry and determination. The ranger watched silently from a respectful distance, chest tightening as the scene unfolded. There was no need for interference yet. The calf's instinctive care carried a rhythm all its own. With cautious persistence, the young elephant nudged and prodded, pressing against its mother's side, encouraging her to shift, to rise. Each attempt was met with resistance, every movement monumental. Yet the two of them established a quiet, patient rhythm and unspoken conversation of presence, touch, and trust. The calf's trunk rubbed along her leg and belly, a gentle insistence, while her tired eyes flicked between the ground and her child, sensing support, comfort, and the determination to keep moving. Around them, the savannah seemed to hold its breath. The air was thick with the mingled scents of dust, sweat, and the faint metallic temps of blood. Sparse leaves rustled in the breeze, carrying distant calls of wildlife across the golden plain. A vulture perched in a nearby branch, observing cautiously, wings twitching, yet the calf did not notice. Its focus remained unwavering, entirely on its mother, on her struggle, on the fragile thread of safety that tethered them together. Minutes passed in this slow, delicate exchange. The calf pressed harder, nudging with persistence, trunk curling briefly around a leg in a small gesture of encouragement. The mother shifted slightly, rising partially, trembling under her own weight but responding, a fragile acknowledgement of her child's care. Every movement, however small, was a victory. Every sigh and rumble carried reassurance, hope, and a shared resolve to endure. The ranger's voice broke the quiet air, soft and tentative, a gentle thread in the tapestry of the scene. "Stay with her. She's almost there." The words, blended with the whispers of wind and the faint rustle of grass, meant not to direct, but to accompany, to honor the fragile, painstaking rhythm of reunion. The mother's gaze met the calf's, eyes reflecting exhaustion, pain, and relief all at once. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that shared presence. Two beings bound by instinct and trust, leaning on one another, refusing to let fear or despair dominate. The grove, the distant plains. The sun-drenched earth-thaw faded into the background, leaving only the quiet, intimate struggle of life asserting itself through patience, persistence, and the gentle insistence of a child guiding its mother in that stillness. The calf and its mother formed a fragile sanctuary, their soft calls and tentative touches speaking louder than words ever could. An unbroken bond navigating the delicate threshold between exhaustion and resilience. The calf pressed its body firmly against its mother's side, trunk curling gently around her front leg, offering steady, quiet support. Her massive frame shivered with effort as she attempted to rise, muscles trembling under the strain, every movement slow and deliberate. The heat of the afternoon pressed down on the grove, yet determination glimmered in her exhausted eyes, a resilient spark that refused to yield. The young elephant nudged and leaned, trunk brushing against her belly and legs. A small, insistent presence that gave her the courage to shift her weight inch by inch. Step by step, she lifted, trembling, each movement monumental, until finally she was upright. Leaning slightly on her child, a fragile but undeniable act of recovery. Around them, the grove seemed to hold its breath. Sunlight filtered through the sparse branches, casting long golden beams that touched the dust and leaves at their feet, wrapping the mother and calf in a soft, luminous halo. The calf pressed closer, trunk flicking lightly against her side, letting out a low, tentative trumpet, soft and steady, a quiet symphony of encouragement that filled the still air with warmth and reassurance. Each sound, each movement was a tender gesture of connection, a reminder that life persists even through fatigue, injury, and fear. The ranger, watching from a respectful distance, stepped slowly forward, careful not to disturb the delicate rhythm of reunion. His presence was calm and unobtrusive, a silent witness to the fragile miracle unfolding. There was no fanfare, no sudden movement, a profound quiet of life asserting itself again. A delicate balance of effort and trust between mother and child. Every step the mother took was measured, faltering at first, as if testing the strength of her legs and the stability of the earth beneath her. The calf stayed close, adjusting its pace to match hers, trunk entwining briefly around hers in a subtle gesture of reassurance. Each movement carried intention, small but significant, a rhythm built on memory, instinct, and care. Soft calls passed between them, low, steady sounds that spoke of recognition, relief, and cautious joy. A language older than words, older than human understanding. The grove seemed to exhale with them, leaves rustling under a gentle breeze. A chorus of life rising quietly around the pair. Birds returned to the nearby branches, settling after the tense hours of observation, their calls threading through the grove as the elephants began to move. The mother's steps grew steadier with every careful stride, each step reinforcing her strength, while the calf mirrored her movements, staying close, sometimes brushing her leg with its trunk, sometimes pressing lightly against her side. Dust rose in thin clouds with each motion, shimmering faintly in the slanting light, and the air was heavy with the mingled scents of earth, sweat, and faint traces of dried blood. Time passed slowly. Measured in careful strides and subtle nudges, the mother and calf moved as one, their rhythm quiet and assured, built on patience and resilience. The grove, once tense with stillness, seemed alive again, filled with the soft chorus of rustling leaves, returning, birds, and the gentle murmur of the earth around them. Every step forward was a confirmation of trust, a small triumph of life asserting itself over exhaustion and fear as the pair emerged fully into the light. The grove behind them seemed to fade into shadow, leaving the elephants bathed in the warm glow of late afternoon. Their steps, though still cautious, carried certainty, a fragile grace restored. The mother occasionally glanced down at her child, trunk flicking briefly against its side, and the calf responded with small nudges and soft rhythmic trumpeting. It was a quiet, unspoken celebration of survival, of connection, and of the subtle miracle of reunion. The wind moved gently through the grass around them, whispering through the grove and across the plains beyond. In that soft golden light, the elephants walked forward together, each step a tender affirmation of life, endurance, and the quiet power of trust shared between a mother and her child, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in muted shades of amber and rose. The mother and calf emerged from the protective cover of the grove. Dust rose in delicate veils around their feet, drifting lightly in the warm glow of late afternoon. Each careful step lifted small clouds of fine earth, catching the light like fleeting wisps of memory. The calf glanced back occasionally, ears flaring softly, as if to check for the unseen presence of the ranger, who remained hidden behind distant shrubs, observing without intrusion. Heart quietly full with relief and awe, their pace was slow and steady, measured in a rhythm born of patience and the fragile strength of recovery. The mother's large, steady frame offered the young elephant guidance and support, each stride helping to stabilize the smaller, uneven steps of her child. The calf adjusted instinctively, trunk brushing against her side for balance, legs trembling occasionally, but never failing to move forward. Around them, the plains stretched endlessly in muted greens and browns, dotted with scattered trees and low shrubs. In the distance, the faint shimmer of a shallow river reflected the descending light, a promise of nourishment and life waiting beyond the horizon. The ranger watched silently, chest tightening with quiet joy. The sight of the two elephants moving together, small and large shapes, bound by instinct and care, left him speechless. There was no need for words, no action required. The moment was already complete, filled with its own quiet significance. The bond between mother and calf, tested and reaffirmed through struggle, radiated through their posture, the gentle brushing of trunks, and the soft, low calls that passed between them. Each sound, each motion, carried the weight of reassurance, survival. in enduring love as they continue to cross the open plains. Grasses swayed gently beneath their feet, bending under the rhythm of their steps. Birds returned to the scattered trees, calling softly, a natural chorus marking the subtle miracle of the reunion. The distant hills held a quiet hush, the golden light filtering through the sparse canopy and stretching across the open land. Every step forward seemed to release the tension of earlier hours. A steady unfolding of life, asserting itself once again, not in spectacle, but in the calm endurance of creatures. Returning to their world, the mother occasionally glanced down at her child, trunk flicking briefly against its side in gestures of reassurance. The calf, in turn, pressed softly against her leg, trunk curling for brief contact, a silent affirmation that it remained close, present, and safe. Their movements were deliberate, yet fluid, a small choreography of instinct, trust, and mutual care. Dust rose with each step, settling slowly back into the earth, leaving only faint impressions that marked the quiet passage of life. A soft wind stirred through the tall grasses, carrying the lingering echoes of their low calls. Each note seemed to hold the weight of hours of struggle and the delicate triumph of reunion. Drifting across the savannah like a whispered reminder that life continues, quietly and with dignity, the mother and calf pressed onward, their silhouettes growing smaller as the distance widened. But the significance of the moment remained vivid. Etched into the heart of anyone who had watched with patience and reverence, the calf glanced up once more, trunk brushing against its mother's gently, and the mother responded with the smallest of nudges, a silent acknowledgement of presence and connection. Step by step, they moved forward into the vast open plains, the soft wind playing through the grasses, the distant river shimmering in fading light, and the world itself seeming to breathe with them. Their journey continued, unhurried, fragile, and complete, leaving behind only footprints, dust, and the quiet memory of a bond that had endured, survived, and gently returned to the rhythm of the wild. Moments like these remind us of the quiet strength and resilience that exists all around us, in the world we often overlook. In the gentle struggle of a young elephant guiding its mother, we see patience, trust, and the delicate bonds that tie life together. Beyond words, beyond human understanding. Every step they took, every cautious nudge, every low, trembling call spoke of hope persisting through hardship. And yet these stories are not just tales of survival, they are a reflection of the care, respect, and attention humans can offer when we pause, observe, and allow the natural world to guide us in its own time. By watching, listening, and learning from these moments, we are reminded that the smallest gestures often carry the greatest impact. The quiet act of a ranger standing at a distance, allowing the calf and mother to reconnect on their own terms, was as important as the steps the elephants took. Respecting wildlife, observing without interfering unnecessarily, and offering help only when it is truly needed allows life to continue its own rhythms with dignity and grace. These stories invite us to witness, to feel, and to carry their lessons into our own lives, where patience and understanding can be applied not only to nature, but to each other. Supporting wildlife conservation is one of the most tangible ways we can ensure that stories like this continue to unfold in the wild. Protected areas, anti-poaching initiatives, waterhole restoration, and community-based conservation programs all contribute to the survival of species and the preservation of delicate ecosystems. Each contribution, no matter how small, becomes part of a larger chain of life, ensuring that calves like this one can continue to find their mothers. Families can thrive, and generations of elephants and countless other creatures can experience safety, nurture, and freedom beyond financial support. Spreading awareness and educating others about wildlife challenges is equally vital. Sharing these stories, discussing the delicate balance of ecosystems, and highlighting the successes of conservation work helps to build a global understanding of our responsibilities toward the natural world. It encourages empathy, and it reminds us that we are never separate from the lives around us. Our choices, our care, and our attention influence the wild in ways that ripple far beyond what we can immediately see every time we witness a reunion, a rescue, or a birth. We are offered a chance to reflect on resilience and connection. The gentle touch of a calf's trunk, the patient effort of a recovering mother, the quiet watch of a human who chooses to honor their struggle. These moments are reminders that life persists, often quietly, often unseen, and always with courage. They teach us that attention, respect, and care can create spaces for hope to flourish, even in the harshest of circumstances. By subscribing to channels that share these stories, supporting wildlife initiatives, and engaging with content that honors the natural world, viewers can become part of a global network that values life, compassion, and understanding. Each click, each share, each conversation sparked by these stories extends the reach of empathy and education, fostering awareness that empowers change. If this story touched your heart, consider joining a community that values the quiet triumphs of the wild, that celebrates connection, patience, and resilience, and that honors the small, monumental acts of care that ensures survival. Together, we can witness more stories like this, protect the vulnerable, and continue to celebrate the gentle miracles that unfold every day across the plains, forests, and rivers of our world. Every action matters. Every choice contributes. And every moment of awareness helps sustain the bond between humans and the creatures with whom we share this planet. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and continue to watch, listen, and honor the quiet miracles of life that unfold in the wild. Because in every whisper of grass, every distant trumpet, every careful step of an elephant, there is a story waiting to inspire us all.